All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is Mr. C of Mr. C's Homeschool Music Academy. Welcome, high schoolers, 9th grade through 12th grade. Welcome to your music lesson. And today we are going to go over note reading formulas. Okay, so have your pencil, have your manuscript paper handy. Definitely your manuscript paper. We're going to need the staff lines for that. Okay, even if you have regular notebooks or something like that, I'm sure that you can manipulate the lines actually on your line paper to make it look like a staff, or even if you have blank sheet paper, then you could do what I did on this board, and that's just kind of freehand draw my own staff lines on there. But definitely have your note-taking materials handy because you're definitely going to need them. And so this is our note reading staff formulas. But before we get into everything in our lesson, let's sing the Mr. C's Homeschool Music Academy jingle. So if you know it, sing along. Here we go. Time for school, time for music, time to learn together. We can do it. Learning is fun with Mr. C. And learning is fun, guys. So welcome once again, high schoolers. And I would like to take the time to give a personal shout out now. Today's personal shout out will be for my friend and yours, Pedro Coelho. Okay, so Pedro Coelho, if you're watching, this song, this little shout out jingle is for you. Here we go. Let's say hi to Pedro Coelho. Let's do some music with Pedro Coelho. Let's get together with Pedro Coelho. Let's go have some fun. And that is my personal shout out. Let's hear it for Pedro Coelho. Let's give a round of applause for him. And that is my personal shout out for Pedro Coelho. Guys, if you are interested in your own personal shout out before we start class, at the very beginning of class, please look in the details below to find out how to sign up for your personal shout out from me to you at the beginning of class. Also in the details of this video, you'll also find some information or ways to get in contact with me for private lessons. So if anybody is interested in private lessons, okay, I teach 5 different instruments. That's ukulele as one of them, piano, guitar, drums, and voice. So if you guys are interested in any of those lessons, please by all means contact me. Look in the details below to find out how to contact me and to get private lessons, and we'll talk pricing and all of that, okay, when you do call me. So once again, private lessons, personal shout outs, and also other services that Mr. C's Homeschool Music Academy has to offer, such as coaching for teachers and homeschooling teachers, music teachers and homeschooling teachers. Anybody who wants to teach music, I do coaching for that. So find out more, guys, in the details below. All right, everybody, let's get right to the point, the lesson. Okay, so let me just adjust my camera over here just to show you what I'm doing, everybody. I'm going to use the piano today for our hymnal. So anybody who's been watching the live classes, if you've been used to watching me, we always start off with a hymnal that we start before we get into the core of our lesson. So hymnals, okay, basically praise God, and we thank God every day for being able to do what we're doing, including music. Okay, so this hymnal is called "Crown Him with Many Crowns." Now, some of you might know this song, some of you might not. If you don't know this song, high schoolers, please by all means get your tablets out, get your phones, or another screen on your computer, and just type in on your Google search engine, "Crown Him with Many Crowns" hymnal. Okay, this is an old song. This has been done before. Okay, and so "Crown Him with Many Crowns." Find that, and those lyrics will pop up right away. Okay, so take some time to do that right now, or even if you can ask your parents right now to do that while we do our stretches, because we definitely stretch before we get into singing. So everybody sit up nice and straight. Make sure your posture is good, your back is straight, your shoulders are relaxed. And my high schoolers, here we go. Let's reach as high as you can up into the sky. Okay, feel that stretch in your lower back and your shoulders and your shoulder blades. Okay, feel that nice stretch and let it drop. And everybody rotate those shoulders. Rotate them, please. Here we go. All right, and everybody rotate them forward. Feel that nice massage in the shoulders as you're rotating them. All right, everyone. Now let's rotate our necks in a circle, everyone. Very slowly, of course. All right. Everybody rotate in the other direction. Okay, and everybody look all the way up, look all the way down, look all the way to your right, and look all the way to your left, and shrug your shoulders and hold them, and drop them. Everybody shrug your shoulders once again and hold it, and let them drop. Okay, everybody, let's shake our hands out a little bit, okay? Breathe while you also do, I know I didn't mention it before, but definitely breathe when you're doing anything physical, especially your stretches, okay? And everybody put your arms out in front of you like this and start opening and closing your hands just to kind of get the blood pumping, okay? These muscles moving, these appendages, okay? There we go. And everybody squeeze right now, squeeze and hold, squeeze, 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 and let it go. Shake it out once again. All right, everybody keep that posture and everybody take a deep breath in through your nose. Deep breath out. Once again, deep breath in and deep breath out. Okay, everybody, good. We did some stretches. Okay, getting our voice. Those stretches that we do, the neck, especially in the neck area, the shoulders, okay, that's all good for the voice, okay? So when we're about to sing anything, which later on, guys, we may tackle, we're actually in our class, we're going to tackle some things about singing when it comes to writing music for singers, so to speak, melody-wise, things like that. We're definitely going to get into some stuff like that when it comes to technique, things to consider when we're writing music, okay? So be ready for that. Always tune in, guys, every Friday. All my high schoolers always tune in every Friday for a new lesson, okay? So also, I want to remind those, if you have not subscribed to my channel, which I've been getting plenty of subscriptions, thank you so very much. I'm humbled, guys. Definitely humbled by you sticking with me, guys, and allowing me to come and meet with you guys to get out this musical education content. So definitely all your subscriptions very much help me. So thank you so very much. Let's celebrate for that. Woohoo! Okay. Thank you so much for all your subscriptions and all your support. So once again, okay, if you have not done so, click subscribe on the bottom and then also click the notifications bell, okay, where you'll be kept abreast of future lessons as they come along. And of course, remember to like and share these videos. Okay. All right, everybody. So now time to do our hymnal. Okay. Now I like the song Crown Him with Many Crowns. Reason I picked this song, well, I like all the hymnals, okay, but for the most part, this particular song is kind of in the title, you know, very, very strong statement. Crown him with many crowns, okay? He is, you know, according to the Bible, he is the King of Kings. You know, you heard that during Christmas time. You know, he's King of Kings. What does that mean? That means he is the King. He is the one and only. And so this particular song, Crown Him with Many Crowns, is a very good reminder of that, and all the more reason to praise him because he allows us to be, to live, to do everything that we and experience all the great stuff that we get to experience. So yeah, this is a very, very good song to remind us of who we should be praising on an everyday basis. So crown him with many crowns. Let's sing it together. Hopefully you got those lyrics handy so that you can sing along, okay? And let's understand and remember why we're doing this. So crown him with many crowns. Here we go. Follow along as best as you can, folks. Crown him with many crowns, the Lamb upon his throne. Hark how the heavenly anthem drowns, all music but its own. Awake my soul and sing of him who died for thee, and hail him as thy matchless King through all eternity. Crown him the Lord of life, who triumphed o'er the grave, and rose victorious through the strife, for those he came to save. His glories now we sing, who died and rose on high, who died eternal life to bring, and lives that death may die. Crown him the Lord of Lords, once on earth, the incarnate Word, who ransomed sinners slain, now lives in realms of light, where saints with angels sing their songs before him day and night, their God, Redeemer, King. Crown him the Lord of heaven, enthroned in worlds above. Crown him the King, of whom is given the wondrous name of love. Crown him with many crowns, as thrones before him fall. Crown him, ye kings, with many crowns, for he is King of all. And that was Crown Him with Many Crowns, guys. Give a round of applause if you were able to follow along with that. Great job, guys. Good job. If not, and you really, really like that song and you want to try to get at it again, make sure you replay this video. Replay the video with your lyrics handy and practice. Practice, definitely. Okay, everyone. So let's get right into the core of our lesson. Right behind me, I have the whiteboard. This is our lesson, note reading formulas. Okay, now why do I name it formulas for all my students that I take on privately or in public school or anything like that. I've always referred to them as formulas for a reason. Now, what you're going to see is a lot of wordplay going on, okay, on our staff here, treble clef staff to be exact, okay? There's going to be a lot of wordplay going on, and so in school, when I actually learned this, I didn't learn it as formulas, but I refer to as formulas in a mathematical sense. Even though these are particular word plays that we're using, they're words that help us memorize where all the notes are found, okay? How we are able to read those notes very quickly, okay? That's really the key to using these formulas, these word formulas, that allows us, again, to read notes very quickly as opposed to going from space to line, which, by the way, that's what the staff is made up of. Spaces and lines, okay? And every space and line has a letter name note. So instead of having to go through, space, line, space, or line, space to get to the actual name of that note or that letter name of the note, which all the notes have letter names, right? Instead of doing that, then these formulas will help you. If you memorize them, these word formulas will help you to read those notes very, very quickly. So let's get started. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to adjust camera and a couple of other things, okay, so we can see everything. Move things out of the way as well. Okay, so here we go. I think this is, hold on. All right, okay, so this is a fairly good view despite the glare. Okay, this is a pretty good view. So here we go. So what we have is, okay, I know you probably can't see it because of the glare, but I titled it, again, Note Reading Formulas, and just underneath, I wrote lines, okay? These are our lines. Now, what constitutes a line note, okay, or note that's on a line, okay? As you can see, every note that I have here circled, or let's put it this way. Let me give you a better example. So let's say I write a whole note right there, okay? That particular whole note here has the third line running right through it. It's right through it, okay? So our whole note, if you guys have been seeing the other previous videos, by the way, we've been doing a lot of rhythms and, identifying different kinds of notes and their values, okay? I'm using whole notes for this particular lesson. And so you have a whole note in red here, okay? And it's right, and the line is running right through it, okay? That's what constitutes a particular line note, okay? Let's make that very certain. Let's make that understandable. If it was a note in a space, then you would have the note within the two lines, set within the two lines, as you can see over here on this top example. So within the two lines, it's in the space. That's what makes a note in the space, okay? But for now, for the time being, we're going to concentrate on identifying line notes, having to read line notes, okay? So I'm going to keep that example there because we're going to read it in a little bit. So our line notes has a particular formula. What is that formula? It is a sentence, if you will, wordplay. So we're in the treble clef, and this formula in particular only works with treble clef. So take a look in case you don't know how to spell treble clef. Here it is. Okay. Okay, so there's our treble clef, which are all the notes in the higher ranges, okay, higher pitches, anything above middle C. Now, we talked about middle C in a previous videos some time ago. I'm just going to reiterate that this is middle C right here, middle C, which is in a ledger line below the treble clef staff. Everybody take a look. Middle C is our bestest friend in the whole world when it comes to finding our way whenever we're lost, okay? So middle C, rely heavily on middle C because that's, again, helps us to find our way pitch-wise, writing-wise, okay? All of that. Middle C is it. So this is middle C, and it's in the ledger line. Say those two words, ledger line, okay? Ledger line below the treble clef staff. The ledger line is an imaginary line that runs underneath, okay? And the ledger line is symbolized by the little line that's right through that C. Do you all see that? Okay, it's a line that's right through it, okay? So again, this is known as middle C. Now, above that, from middle C and up, when the notes climb high onto the staff, okay, that means the notes are raising in pitch, okay? What do I mean by pitch? So here's middle. Here, just as a point of fact, just for your information, this is middle C right here when you hear it, okay? And so as you go up towards your right on the piano, okay, as you're going higher, okay, that's the notes that are written higher up on the staff. That means those pitches are raising, which means it's sounding. It's not just going higher on the staff. It also means that it actually sounds higher. When you read it on that staff in the higher parts, okay, of the treble clef staff, then you get to hear the higher pitches. You actually read it, and that's what you're actually going to play or on your instrument or sing with your voice, okay? So we have the ledger line below the treble clef staff, known as middle C. We also have another ledger line above the treble clef staff, which is known as A, which is just A. It's not middle anything, okay? It's just a higher A, okay? That's high A right there, okay? So there's ledger line A above the treble clef staff, which is the highest note we're really reading and working with here. And then you have the middle C below the treble clef staff, which is the lowest we're working with for the time being, okay? Now, in between middle C and high A there, you have this word play, these letters, okay, going through the staff with every line accounted for. So at the very bottom line, just above middle C, you have the E, which stands for the word every, okay? In fact, let's actually say the entire sentence. It's actually best if we do that, okay? So we say the entire sentence, every good boy does fine, okay? Everybody repeat that. Every good boy does fine. In fact, say it again. Every good boy does fine. Notice that the sentence, again, on the staff climbs higher. We're going higher up in the staff, which means we're getting into higher pitches, okay, from your E and up to your F, okay? So, again, the E, the point of this, really, the point of this wordplay formula, okay, is that when we remember this sentence, every good boy does fine, we remember the letter names of each line. And which are the letter names of each line? E is every, okay? The E is the actual letter name of that note, which is in that bottom line there, okay? So that is our E. Notice how I have the letter E, and it's encircled with blue, right? And so that bottom line is going right through that first letter, okay? So in other words, every letter for every word, every first letter for every word is the letter name note. Let me say that again. Every first letter of every word that we just said of this formula is the letter name of the line notes, okay? Again, we're dealing with our lines because the lines are going right through those first letters of each word. So every is our E, good is our G, boy is our B, does is our D, and fine is for our F. Every good boy does fine. E, G, B, D, and F. Okay? Now, again, you have, well, I shouldn't say again, but you have these ledger line notes, high A and middle C below, okay? If we were trying to figure out which note, what the letter names were without seeing, without looking at this formula, well, knowing the formula would be key to helping you figure out what the letter name notes below and above are, okay? And I'm going to show you that sometime. It may not be today, but I'm going to show you that sometime when we're identifying more notes, okay? And getting into the practice of naming those notes quick, okay? But again, always remember, whenever you're just trying to read the notes, or whenever you're asked, what is the lines formula for treble clef staff, you're going to remember every good boy does fine, and then state the letters E, G, B, D, F, working our way from the bottom line to the top line of the staff, okay? Does everybody understand that? You guys got that? Make sure you're writing this down, by the way. I know I didn't say it, but I did say to get those notebooks and those pencils handy. Okay, please write this down, okay? I'm going to give you guys some time, okay, to write this down. Every good boy does fine. Make sure the first letters have the lines running through those first letters, not necessarily the rest of the letters of those words, okay? Okay, remember, again, this is what a lot of students get this confused with, okay? If they're trying to identify notes, they're going to name it the actual word. No, we're going to name it the first letter of the word. The words are just a formula, a wordplay, if you will, to remembering the first letters of each word, which are the letter names of those lines, okay? Everybody got that? So please write that down. Every good boy does fine, with your E, your G, your B, your D, and your F, where the lines are running through them like the way I have them right there, okay? Also, don't forget to include your middle C with the ledger line below the treble clef, and your high A with your ledger line above the treble clef. Now, while you guys are writing this down, take a look at the side here. I made a bar line. I wrote a bar line right over here to kind of keep this solitary, where we have our line note, okay, in red here, okay? It's on the 1, 2, 3rd line, okay? Now, yes, it's on the 3rd line, but that's not the most important thing. This is how we use the note reading formula for your lines of the treble clef staff to identify the note. So we look at it right away. We identify it as a line note because the 3rd line is running right through it, okay? But we're not going to count, letter by letter. We're going to use that formula. We're going to remember that it's every good boy does fine, right? Then from there, you're going to apply the formula, the wordplay formula, to the actual lines of the staff in order to properly identify that particular note, which is, again, on the 3rd line. So what you do is you point out the bottom line. You know that the bottom line starts on every, right? So you simply point it out, touch it, whatever, okay? You have every. Your second line is for the word good, right? Every good. And then you go up to the 3rd line. Your 3rd line is for the word boy, okay? Every good boy. Do we continue further to get to does and fine? No, not really. Because the point of the formula is, by using the formula that you will have memorized, okay? You just state those words. You recite it. Every good boy. You recite it. In other words, you recite those words until you actually get to the note where it's located, okay? It's all about location. Say that again. It's all about location, right? So as soon as you go every good boy, okay, we're right at that 3rd line where the note is, okay? Boy, okay? What's the letter that starts with boy? What's the letter that starts with boy? It would be B, and so you would label it as such. Okay, if you're ever labeling, now technically speaking, there's not, it's not necessary. It's not a. Let me put it this way: if you're practicing to identify those notes, to be able to read those notes, okay, you won't necessarily always be writing the label or the letter name of that note underneath, like I just did right there, okay? But yes, do this for your note-taking purposes. You definitely want to write this down, okay? To be and get into the practice the way I just did it in this example. So every good boy, you do an uppercase B. If you're ever going to label your notes, in fact, if you're just reading a piece of sheet music and you're trying to identify all those notes in the sheet music, it's okay. If it's your personal sheet music, it's definitely okay to get a pencil and label your notes. What? Who's going to stop you? It's your sheet music. You see what I'm saying? So you're using it to perform or whatever, right? Then yeah, label your notes, okay? But if you're going to label it, make sure you label it as uppercase B, okay? All your letters uppercase, okay? The reason for that is sometimes the necessity for labeling them uppercase is that sometimes when you write them as lowercase, sometimes depending on depending on one's personal handwriting abilities, okay, their handwriting, sometimes they might get confused at what they're looking at. They might look at it later and go, that G, well, not, they won't say that G, but it might have been something that you wrote as G, okay, and you wrote it as lowercase. In my experience, sometimes that has tended to look like an S. Okay, that has happened too. So I've seen students do that a lot, and then I would ask them, well, what did you mean here? You know that there's no S note, right? There's no such thing as an S note. Okay, which, by the way, quick reminder, our musical alphabet is from A through G. Okay, I'm pretty sure I've said this before. Okay, but I'm just reminding everybody again, the musical alphabet only goes from A through G. And depending on what octave you're at, okay, where you're at on the staff and everything, it gets repeated, okay? But it's only A through G. It goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it starts over again, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, okay? But this order of the formula and everything, this is, again, a way of us to be able to read the notes a lot quicker. Okay, I'm just moving it a little bit closer for guys. No, that didn't help at all. I thought that would help, but no. No, it didn't. All right. Okay. All right, that's the best I can do for now. Okay, but still better than what it was before. Okay, so A through G is the alphabet, and that's how we identify our lines. Just using the recitation of those words, of that formula for the lines, starting from the bottom and working your way to the note, okay? However, if, just for one other quick example, okay, let's say the note, now I wrote a different whole note there. Oh, goodness. I have to back it up just to, okay. All right, that's the best I can do. I wrote a different whole note there where it's now at the bottom line where the E for every is. If we were to recite it, we see that note where it is, and we go to recite the formula, we go every, right where that note is. Hey, there's no need to go further because the note is already located on the every line, which is our E, in which case we would identify it as E, using uppercase E, okay? So I know you can't see that very well. Yeah, there it is. So I kind of lifted it up, okay? But you would label it as such, okay? So that is how we use our lines formulas, guys, okay? So now I'm going to continue, and I'm going to erase this particular formula, and we're going to move on right into our spaces in the treble clef, okay? So hang tight with that. This is definitely going to look much different. Hopefully you got this formula. Again, every good boy does fine. If you didn't, please make sure you replay this video afterwards and write it down, okay? All right. Okay. So now we're talking about our spaces. This is for the spaces now. Spaces formulas, okay? Our note reading formulas for the spaces is a lot simpler and easier to remember, okay? Watch this. So I'm going to write the formula. Sweet. Okay. So check this out, guys. So I wrote down just letters, didn't I? Where are the words? Okay. Well, there is a word involved. Okay. If we take a look at the actual space notes within the staff, now I'm talking about within the staff. I'm not going to go over necessarily the notes underneath or above the treble clef staff in those spaces above and below. Okay. But the ones within the spaces within the staff, we have our F, right? There's our F. We have the next up, our A, and then we have our C, and then we have E right over here. Just before that G, we have that E within the treble clef staff. Okay? So we have there those 4 letters, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that spells out a word, obviously face. Okay? So say that, face. Okay? All right, so if you never had, most of us actually learn these type of things as early as elementary or even in middle school, depending, okay? But some of them, some of us don't really learn this stuff until we get to high school, I think. Or sometimes we never learn it, okay? So this is for everybody who's just need a refresher, basically. But in any event, okay, the word face is what we think of. That is our formula for our spaces in the treble clef. Okay, so think of the word face every time. Just think, I like to give a hint to my students and say, hey, what was the formula for the spaces again? And they'll be, they're trying to figure it out. And I'll be like, okay, well, what about thinking of a body part? What about a body part? I'll just say body part, and then be like, oh, sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, face. Okay, yeah. So face is that formula, face, and then you spell it from the bottom space to the working your way up, F-A-C-E. Very easy. It's the easiest actually out of all the formulas to remember between treble clef and bass clef, which I'm going to show you guys next week, okay? So remember face, and you will never get a thing wrong, okay, when it comes to note reading. Then you have the notes below the note below the treble clef, which is your D, okay? That is your D. How do we know that's D, by the way? Okay, if the F is in the space, take a look. The F is in the space. We just went over the lines formula. The line here, just below F, this line right here is your E, E for every, remember that? So this is E, and we're going, in other words, if we're going down on the staff, we're going backwards in the alphabet, so to speak. So you got F, the line would be E, and then right below the E in the space, okay, is your D. Not to be confused with your middle C again, guys. Don't confuse yourself with that middle C, okay? That middle C is lower. If you see the way I wrote it too, it's actually lower than the D, okay? It's much lower, not much lower, but it's a step lower in that ledger line. So really your D is it's within the imaginary line and the E line. That's where your D actually lies, okay? So you have F, bottom line E, D in the space, ledger line below that, middle C, okay? So that's what you got going there. But again, these are your spaces, okay? These are the spaces, okay? And again, a space note, what constitutes a space note is notes that are in between the 2 lines, okay, in your staff, okay? So let's do a case in point, okay? If I wanted to write another whole note, let's say right over here, okay? There's my whole note, if we can see that. Yeah, okay, yeah, we can see it. So, okay? But if you can see there, we have the whole note between the 2 lines in the top space of the treble clef staff, okay? So we have that there, and so what do? we again use our formulas. We spell out the word face starting at the bottom space, okay? You know what, oh, that's right. Okay, so we spell out the word and we start from the bottom space right here and we work our way up to the note where the location of the note is. We go F, A, C, E. Yeah, we spelled out the whole word. We got up to the top space. So obviously that would be labeled and identified as E. Okay, our uppercase E. We write uppercase, in case we're labeling them. And by the way, I'm talking a lot about labeling notes on your sheet music and things like that. It's not just for us composers or us instrumentalists who are trying to learn a song or whatever the case may be. For you future music teachers out there, okay? For you future music teachers, you're going to have to tell your students, which I've done in my experience, you're going to have to, a lot of times you're going to have to do sheet exercises, dittos, things like that, where they have to learn to identify, to read the notes. So you're going to have sheet music where, not just sheet music, but just different measure examples such as this one, where you're going to expect them to, or you're going to need them to label the notes. And so you always want to tell your students uppercase E. Always use uppercase so that I can read it and I can know what you mean. Okay. Again, with the case in point with somebody there was a student I had that wrote a lowercase g once, and it kind of looked like an S. So unfortunately, when I'm marking papers, because it was a quiz, okay? When I'm marking papers, I had to mark that individual's test wrong. Not the test, but that one wrong, because I thought person had a mental lapse for a moment and wrote S, okay? And so I had to take away credit for that. But that's something that you want to reiterate and just as a rule of thumb, your labeling notes, always use uppercase, because the uppercase, no matter what your handwriting is, your uppercase letters will never be confused with another letter. Okay, so uppercase is always the safest bet. And then don't forget, I did mention your D below the treble clef staff. You still also have your G in the space above. Okay, you have the G note. How do we know that that's G? Because we have the E in this top space. We go to the line, which is our F. We're going up, so then we're thinking of the alphabet going forward. E, alphabetical order, the line is F, F for fine in our lines formula, and then goes right up to G, okay? So there it is, face. I am so not satisfied with, okay, there we go. I think we can, yeah. Okay, there we go. I'm kind of up against the wall over here, but I care that you guys can't see this stuff, okay? For a simple thing as a glare. Okay, I'm going to fix that one day, I promise. Okay, but D in the space below, G in the space above, and then within the staff, you have the word face. You think of the word face as your formula, your spaces formula, and you use it, and you spell it F-A-C-E as you go from the bottom space and you work your way up, okay? Or in this case, up to the note until you can label and identify that particular note, okay? Everybody got this? I almost let that fall. Oops. Of course you didn't see that. Okay, but everybody understand now. Hopefully you wrote all of this down, guys. If not, definitely take the time to write it all down. Make sure you have it in your notes, okay? We're going to definitely use this a lot. We're going to do some examples together, and actually next week we're going to learn how to read the notes in bass clef. That's another clef that is very necessary. We're talking about the lower range of notes. Treble clef meaning higher range, bass clef meaning lower range, okay? All right, everybody, and that is the end of our lesson. Give yourselves a nice round of applause if you were able to get all this stuff down. If not, make sure you go back to this video and press play and get everything down, guys, okay? Make sure you keep those notes. This will definitely help you. And again, memorize the two formulas that I just showed you. Memorize them so that this way you can read those notes, read those musical notes like you read anything in your, okay? But in any event, I want to give shout outs to my friends in China, in Japan, in the UK, in the Philippines, in India, in Sri Lanka, Did I mention Australia? Yes, I did. Australia, my friends in Australia, I don't mind mentioning you again. Okay. And also my friends in the United States, as well as in South America. Thank you, all of you, for your ongoing support of Mr. C's Homeschool Music Academy by subscribing and by viewing and by watching. I want to keep doing this. I love music. I love music, and I want to share musical education. I want to share, so that you guys can be enriched and can learn and even find some connection with a lot of the other academics. Okay, so for example, we've been doing a lot of note reading. This is, in a way, can be definitely connected in a mathematical sense. Okay, besides my my wordplay in calling it formulas. Okay, which does act as a formula. Face and every good boy does fine. It acts as a formula to remembering, how to create the solution in identifying those notes. But in identifying those notes, we're using a musical staff, which can be noted as a graph, a grid, if you will. It's kind of like a grid where we can, again, identify and see how notes climb up. Okay, it's kind of like when your data climbs. Okay, when you have bar graphs, or line graphs or anything like that. Okay, you can tell your students. You can tell your students, your young ones. Okay, you can tell if you're kind of tutoring somebody in math or anything like that. Okay, mathematics definitely goes hand in hand. When you're reading music, it's definitely like a fun way of practicing reading graphs, so they can read their data. Okay, when the numbers climb, the graphs show how the numbers climb by using bars and lines, okay, as they go up that grid, or up that graph, I should say. Okay, well, it's the same thing when it comes to this. We're seeing how pitches raise in terms of sound. Pitches raise as it goes up, or as the melody starts to go down. We can read it as a graph. Okay, so it definitely influences the graph reading aspect in mathematics. Okay, but there you have it. We can find connection with music in all subjects. Okay, which is why people who tend to be musicians, or who tend to delve into music, they definitely become very good scholars. Okay, especially in math and science. Okay, but in any event, there it goes. Okay, there's my spiel. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining me. And remember, again, those details below in the video, where you can find out more about all the different services that I previously mentioned from Mr. C's Homeschool Music Academy. Again, hit subscribe, like, and share. Hit the notifications bell so you can be notified of future lessons. And guys, I wish you happy practicing. Everyone, take care. Have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye now.